I had always loved camping, ever since I was a kid. My dad used to take me to different campsites in Idaho, where we lived. He taught me how to pitch a tent, start a fire, and fish in the rivers. He also told me stories about the wildlife, the history, and the legends of the land. He made camping fun and exciting, and I wanted to share that with my girlfriend, Amy. We had been dating for a year, and I thought it was time to take her on a camping trip. She had never been camping before, and I wanted to show her how amazing it was. I did some research, and found a campsite that seemed perfect. It was called River Pond Campground, and it was located in Garden Valley, Idaho, along the middle fork of the Payette River. It had RV and tent camping, with electric and water hookups, and a dump station. It also had a picnic area, a playground, and a volleyball court. It was close to the town, where there were shops, restaurants, and a hot springs resort. It sounded like a great place to spend a weekend. I booked a tent site online, and packed our car with everything we needed. I brought a tent, sleeping bags, pillows, blankets, a cooler, a stove, a lantern, a flashlight, a first aid kit, and some food and drinks. I also brought a fishing rod, a camera, and a guitar. I wanted to make this trip memorable for Amy. We left on Friday morning, and drove for about 2 hours. The scenery was beautiful, with mountains, forests, and fields. We saw some deer, elk, and birds along the way. We arrived at the campground around noon, and checked in at the office. The staff was friendly and helpful, and gave us a map and some brochures. They told us our site number, and wished us a good stay. We drove to our site, and parked our car. The site was spacious and shady, with a fire ring, a picnic table, and a grill. We could see and hear the river, which was clear and sparkling. We unloaded our stuff, and set up our tent. It was easy and quick, and we were proud of our work. We decided to have some lunch, and then explore the area. We ate some sandwiches and chips, and drank some water. We felt refreshed and energized, and ready for some adventure. We grabbed our fishing rod and camera, and walked to the river. It was only a few steps away, and it looked inviting. We found a spot on the bank, and cast our line into the water. We hoped to catch some trout, but we didn't really care. We just enjoyed the view, the sound, and the company. We talked and laughed, and took some pictures. We kissed and cuddled, and felt happy and in love. We didn't catch any fish, but we didn't mind. We had each other, and that was enough. We decided to go back to the campsite, and start a fire. We wanted to roast some marshmallows, and make some s'mores. We also wanted to play some music, and sing some songs. We thought it would be fun and romantic, and a perfect way to end the day. We walked back to the campsite, and gathered some firewood. We arranged it in the fire ring, and lit a match. The fire started easily, and soon we had a nice and cozy fire. We sat on a log, and wrapped a blanket around us. We roasted some marshmallows, and made some s'mores. They were gooey and delicious, and we ate them with delight. We also drank some hot chocolate, and felt warm and fuzzy. I took out my guitar, and tuned it. I asked Amy what song she wanted to hear, and she said, "Anything you want." I smiled, and played her favorite song. It was "Can't Help Falling in Love" by Elvis Presley. I sang along, and looked into her eyes. She smiled, and sang along too. She looked beautiful, and I felt lucky. We finished the song, and clapped. We kissed and hugged. We said, "I love you," and meant it. We felt happy, and content. We decided to go to bed, and snuggle. We put out the fire, and went to the tent. We crawled into our sleeping bags, and cuddled. We whispered sweet nothings, and fell asleep. We slept peacefully, and dreamt of each other. We woke up to a nightmare. A loud, terrifying roar. It sounded like a bear, angry and hungry. We jolted, and panicked. We didn't know what to do. Should we stay in the tent? Should we run out? Should we scream for help? We decided to stay in the tent. We thought maybe the bear would go away, if we didn't make any noise. We hoped we were right. We were wrong. The bear came closer and closer. We could hear its heavy footsteps and its deep breaths. We could smell its foul odor and its hot breath. We could feel its presence and its power. It reached our tent and pawed at it. It tore the fabric and exposed us. It saw us and growled. It wanted us and attacked. We screamed. We fought. We lost. But I saved. I had always wanted to go camping in Colorado, one of the best states for camping in America. 1:6. I heard it had beautiful scenery, diverse wildlife, and plenty of outdoor activities. So when my friend Jake invited me to join him and his family for a weekend trip to Waukene Koe Journey, a campground near Hays, Kansas, I jumped at the chance. It was only a 6-hour drive from my home in Iowa, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to see a different part of the country. We arrived at the campground on Friday afternoon, and I was impressed by how clean and spacious it was. The campground had 60 sites, some with full hookups, some with just electric, and some with no utilities at all. We chose a pull-through site with electric, water, and sewer, and set up our tents and RV. The campground also had a pool, a playground, a dog park, and a store. It seemed like a perfect place to relax and have fun. Jake and I decided to explore the area a bit, and we found a trail that led to a nearby lake. We grabbed our fishing rods and some snacks, and headed out. The trail was easy to follow, and we enjoyed the fresh air and the sound of birds. The lake was about a mile away, and it looked calm and inviting. We found a spot on the shore, and cast our lines into the water. We hoped to catch some bass or catfish, but we didn't have much luck. We only got a few nibbles, and no bites. We didn't mind though. We were having a good time, just talking and joking around. We shared stories about our lives, our hobbies, our dreams. Jake told me he wanted to be a veterinarian, and I told him I wanted to be a writer. We had a lot in common, and I felt like we were becoming closer friends. We lost track of time, and before we knew it, the sun was setting. We decided to pack up and head back to the campground. We didn't want to be out in the dark, especially since we didn't have a flashlight. We gathered our stuff and started to walk back to the trail. That's when we heard it. A loud, piercing scream. It sounded like a woman, in pain and terror. We froze and looked at each other. We didn't know what to do. Should we go and help? Should we run away? Should we call for help? We decided to go and help. We thought maybe someone was hurt, or attacked by an animal. We dropped our fishing rods and ran towards the source of the scream. We hoped we could make a difference. We were wrong. We ran for about a minute until we reached a clearing. There, we saw a horrifying sight. A woman lying on the ground covered in blood. Her clothes were torn, and her body was mutilated. Her eyes were wide open, and her mouth was twisted in a silent scream. She was dead. Next to her, there was a man. He was also covered in blood, but he was alive. Barely. He was holding a knife, and he was stabbing himself in the chest. Over and over. He was mumbling something, but we couldn't understand what he was saying. He looked insane. We were shocked and scared. We didn't know what to do. We wanted to run away, but we also wanted to help. We wanted to call for help, but we didn't have our phones. We wanted to scream, but we were afraid he would hear us. We stood there, frozen, watching him kill himself. Then he stopped. He dropped the knife and fell to the ground. He was still alive, but barely. He looked at us and smiled. A twisted, bloody smile that he said one word. "Hello?" Then he died. We screamed. We ran. We didn't stop until we reached the campground. We told the staff what we saw, and they called the police. The police came and took us to the station. They asked us a lot of questions, and we told them everything we knew. They told us we were lucky to be alive. They told us the couple we saw were wanted for a series of murders across the country. They told us they had been on the run for months, and they had killed at least 10 people. They told us they didn't know why they did it, or how they ended up at the lake. They told us it was a mystery. We didn't care. We just wanted to go home. We never went camping again. I had rented a small cabin near a lake, surrounded by tall trees. The cabin was quaint and cozy, with a fireplace and a small kitchen. I had brought enough food and supplies to last me the weekend. On the first night, I heard strange noises outside the cabin. It sounded like something was scratching at the door. I tried to ignore it and went back to sleep. But the noise continued, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was watching me. The next day, I decided to explore the woods. I walked for hours, enjoying the fresh air and the beautiful scenery. But as the sun began to set, I realized that I had lost my way. I tried retracing my steps, but everything looked the same. Panic set in as I realized that I might have to spend the night in the woods. As I walked, I saw a small cabin in the distance. I ran towards it, hoping to find help. But as I got closer, I realized that it was the same cabin I had rented. I was confused and scared. How could I have walked in a circle? I went inside the cabin, hoping to find some answers. But the cabin was different now. The walls were covered in strange symbols, and the air was thick with an eerie silence. I felt like I was being watched again. Suddenly, I heard a voice behind me. "You shouldn't have come here," it said. I turned around, but there was no one there. I was alone in the cabin, or so I thought. I heard footsteps coming from upstairs. I slowly climbed the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. As I reached the top, I saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was a man, but his face was hidden in darkness. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. The man stepped forward, and I saw his face. It was my own face, twisted into a grotesque mask. I screamed and ran out of the cabin, not looking back. I never went back to that cabin again. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I can still hear the scratching at the door.